Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
कितने लोग इतना काम दिया था वो लोग का हम लोग कमेंट सुनते थे बस में क्लिप भी नहीं लगाया ढक्कन देख के बॉटल करता है नहीं लीला को तुम्हें खुद से प्यार होना आना चाहिए सब अच्छा लगा देखती है लीला पिछले से माफी जाने के लिए बात जाने का क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंस गोपाल साहब भी कितना डिफिकल्ट है वैसे भी तो बात घूमती नहीं है क्या घर पे ऐसी रहती है क्या वो एक शब्द निकालती नहीं है लोग आ जाती है बाल का जितनी ज्यादा बॉडी होती है इसलिए बाहर जाने का चांसेस है जब तक उसके मन के हिसाब से करेगा वैसा करेगा अब उसको जैसे बोलेंगे खाना खाओ ऐसे नहीं कर सकते खाओ एक हफ्ते पापा के साथ रहेगा तो और आनंद आएगा मजा आएगा गाना काटना हो तो डाल दे कितना कुछ डाल दे कोविड के वक्त नया चीज आ गया
Vandeyaham Shadvaitam Shavadutam Parijan Shaitam Shaitan Sri Radha Krishna Among for the Guru, I dropped the shit of Guru Gonta, Jordan, I get Korea. The mercy that you get here, Sisi Radha Rashbihari Mondir, mercy that you get. Last night, Vayashiki Prabhu Kirtan, this morning, Shruta Kirti Prabhu. Turn him on, you just turn him on. Just turn him on and you're there with Prabhupada. Amazing. Such exalted soul, such extraordinary. 3 years he was traveling with Prabhupada for 3 years. Can you imagine? Such a rare a man who receives such mercy to be living with Prabhupada for 3 years while he was spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. I mean, how could you get such a fortune? And when you hear him speak, he's just like a madman for Srila Prabhupada. He's just like nothing else in his consciousness. We have to, it's special. Prabhupada's appearance on this planet, his pastimes, those devotees who are associated with Prabhupada and serve him, they're all special. They're all extraordinary. We're all in the ordinary category. Anyway, the momentum is still there. The momentum is, Prabhupada came and still the momentum is still there. But we have to admit that it's incomparable mercy and circumstances. And these men, they knew nothing. From nothing, from zero, from complete adham, agyan background. We can relate to that. In India, you're not at the 0 point, but in the West, it's 0 point. The people, when I was young, vegetarianism was like witchcraft. The idea of someone vegetarian, it was like witchcraft, and taboo was like vegetarian. That's how degraded. Mlecha jabon desh. And from there, Prabhupada's picking and just inconceivable how bestowed so much mercy. So we were reflecting, listening to Prabhu's discussions this morning. He said he liked Juhu, the atmosphere in Juhu. It takes an exalted soul for us to realize the treasures that we have. Become familiar, we don't realize it's come to the temple, but it's so special. Temple. He said that Prabhupada was always thinking about you. So you're so fortunate to be able to be connected to this temple, serve in this temple. I'm so fortunate to be able to take your Tadera Chirana Shebi Bhakta Shoneba. I'm so fortunate to be able to take your association here, invited to train the new. Such a responsibility. I can't believe that they the temple leadership give me such a responsibility after such effort of struggle and organization and sacrifice. And men are coming, dedicating their lives to Krishna consciousness, and such men they're given to hand it over to me, associate to associate. if only you knew the sort of actually who I am and the person I am, you would never do that. But anyway, I'm considering it my purification to take such association. Therefore, I come and Raja Hari Prabhu, Sundar Chaitanya is going, come in May. Okay, I'll come. You're going, I'll come. Because how could I ignore such a request from such special devotees, the servants of Sisi Radha Rashmiya? How could we ignore such requests? Now, we've been discussing about, it's taken quite a long time. The topic was Rupshika. We haven't quite got to it yet. It's taken months and months, but that's okay. Because Gaura Modhu Lila, Jar Kone Probe Shila, Ridoy Nimal Bhela, just by hearing about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the heart is purified. Jasmin Proti Shlokam, each and every verse. Jasmin Proti Shlokam, each and every verse. Abadavatabin Janataga Viplava. Janataga Viplava can create a revolution in the misdirected lives of the sinful population. Each and every verse. So there's no hurry. There's no hurry. We were racing this week. We were racing through the Bhagavad Gita, chapters 7 to 12 in 3 days. These boys, they don't know what hit them. We started just a few moments ago, and 6 chapters just flew through in high speed. Because Prabhu, Rajahari Prabhu asked me, come and teach the whole Bhakti Shastri. That's a lot. That's 50 lessons minimum. Tell me to teach the whole Bhakti Shastri. He said, so you come. He said, you come, teach the whole Bhakti Shastri. How could I refuse? Such a dear sevak of Sisi Radha Rashbihari. How can I refuse his request? I'm a foolish person, but not that foolish. How can we refuse? But we have to go a bit quick to. But these boys, they're manage that. But we can go slowly through this Chaitanya Kothar. We're coming to the. Actually, today we're pretty much beginning the real Rupshika as you'll find it. We heard way back. I began the Rupshika seminar. I can't even remember when I began, but I was going back. Okay, where will we start? And I just kept going back and back and back. 16th to 17th chapter. It's 19th chapter. Madhu Lila. Sri Chaitanya Charita, 19th chapter. And 17th chapter, attempt to go to Vrindavan, and the 16th chapter, and then no, you've got to go back to 10th chapter, 11th chapter. Mahaprabhu coming to Puri. Gauda Bhaktadan, their arrival in Puri, understanding how much attachment. Then you've got to go to Shantipur. Mahaprabhu is explaining. Sanyas dharmana hai shannash kuriya nija janmasthane rohe kutumbalaya. Mahaprabhu is saying it's not the dharma of a sannyasi, nija janmasthane rohe, to stay in his place of birth, kutumbalaya, with his family and friends. But I cannot give you up. Mahaprabhu said, I cannot give you up. The Gauda Bhaktagan, so dear, with whom he performed the Navadip Lila, the childhood pastimes. Parikonda Kota, Jai Amrit Shravan, Jai Shishu Rupe Krida Kore Narayan, performing his pastimes. Growing up in Navadip, Ganga pastimes, Bal Lila, Ganga pastimes, Vidya Lila, and then Shankirtan Lila in the house of Srivas Thakur, and such attachment for the Navadip Bashis. They're not ordinary devotees. Sri Gaura, Gaudangera, Shongi Gone, Nitta Siddha Purimone. They're all the Brajavasis, the Gopas, the Gopis, cowherd men, the cowherd ladies, the mothers, they all appeared in Navadip to associate with Shachinanda. So the Navadip pastimes. And Mahaprabhu, he could not tolerate that he took sannyas just for the preaching. Tobe more deke shei doribe charon, ei mote udharibo shakal bhuban. When they see me, they'll fall down and clasp doribe charon, clasp my feet. In this way, ei mote udharibo shakal bhuban, I will deliver the whole universe. Even those who are resisting, the academics, the scholars, the smartas, the atheists, the students, they're resisting. They're not described participating in the Mahaprabhu's pastimes. The doors were closed. Shivaji Thakur's, the doors were closed. It was Antaranga Bhaktagon, dancing, pastimes, all night kirtan. So then what about these rejected plants? So Mahaprabhu took sannyas. So then they will respect. They will fall down and touch my feet. And in that way, unknowing, not knowing that I'm the Supreme Lord, but in this way, udharibo, I will deliver shakal gubon, the entire universe, means everybody. So Mahaprabhu took sannyas, and then he has to leave, not Mayapur, has to leave, like Vishwarup. He took sannyas and they never heard of him again. No news, no association. So then Sachimata requested, you remain in Jagannath Puri. You want to go to Vrindavan, and Jagannath Puri and Vrindavan, obinno, no different. So Mahaprabhu is residing in Jagannath Puri. He doesn't remain there long. He after 5 weeks only, even though from the time of initiation in Gaya at that time, Mahaprabhu, he abandoned his party. He went with students, disciples actually. Vrindavan Das Thakur says disciples. He abandoned them in the middle of the night, racing off to Vrindavan. And then Akashvani, a voice from the sky, said, "No, you cannot go to Vrindavan now. Now is not the time to go to Vrindavan." What? You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, huh? It's our responsibility to remind you of the purpose of your avatar. Koli chuke Juga Dharma Namera Prochar Toti Lage Pitabona Chaitanya Avatar. We have our Chaitanya Avatar, so empowered preacher, college preacher, Chaitanya Avatar ki. So Toti Lage Pitabona Chaitanya Avatar. He appears as the Chaitanya Avatar, Toti Lage, for the purpose of Namera Prochar, preaching, which is Juga Dharma. So you take sannyas, have to preach Krishna consciousness. You can't, not possible that the Sankirtan movement has not been established yet. So Mahaprabhu goes back to Navadip. He begins Sankirtan in the house of Shivaji Thakur. Sankirtan pastimes. Dinnahin joto chilo, hariname udharilo, tarshaki jogai maadhai. The evidence that dinna hinnu jota chilo, no matter how dinna hinnu means rejected, degraded, fallen, jota chilo, how much you can possibly become. Hariname udharilo, the holy name can deliver you. Tarshaki, what's the evidence? Tarshaki, what's the witness? Tarshaki, jogai madhai. So jogai madhai had to be delivered in Navadip. And then so many other pastimes, Navadip. Then Mahaprabhu took sannyas, went to Jagannath Puri, and again, immediately he's considering the purpose of his avatar, Namera Procha. First thing he does in Jagannath Puri is delivers Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the most influential philosopher in all of Hinduism, the guru of the king of Puri. Even now, you can see Shankara Math in Jagannath Puri. Shankara Math is just behind ISKCON. It's the next neighborhood, just with 500 meters or so behind ISKCON, Bhakti Kutir. It's Shankara Math. And there is Sankaracharya there. And still that Rath, Jagannath Puri Rath, they don't begin until Shankaracharya comes. The Sankaracharya of Jagannath Puri, he comes and circumambulates and seva Jagannath. Then and the king, and his guru, Shankaracharya. You could say the most influential, the most respected. Of course, these preachers, these self-made gurus, they come and go. They're every few years there's a new avatar on the TV and on the YouTube, and many followers. But ultimately, in Sanatana Dharma Samaj, Shankara, Jagannath Puri Shankara Math Acharya is the most respected position in Hinduism. The four maths of Shankara, Dwarka, Jagannath Puri, Rameshwaram, and Badrinath. Four maths Sankaracharya, and these acharyas are there, and then Jagannath Puri. So that's the post that the Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had. And Mahaprabhu, the first thing he does when he arrives in Jagannath Puri, the first thing he does, he delivers that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the guru of the king. And he delivers him in such an extraordinary manner. Simultaneously, he's displaying the bhav. Kirtan korite prabhu shavra babu doi stamba kampa pulagashu gadgara pralai. Hearing the kirtan. Kirtan korite prabhu shavra bhav udoy. All of the symptoms, shavra bhav udoy, they awaken, they arouse in his form in the kirtan. Stamba, kampa, pulakasru. Stamba becomes like a pillar. Kampa is quivering. Kampa. Pulakasru, his hair is standing on end. Gadgara, his voice is choking up. Pralay, devastated. So like that, he comes before Lord Jagannath, pralaya, devastated. Asta Shaktikabha falls down. That's Mahaprabhu simultaneously relishing the bhav and preaching, establishing his missions. That the Bhattacharya sees those symptoms. In fact, a few years ago, we did Puri Yatra. We discussed the deliverance of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in detail. Perhaps another time we can again discuss. We can desire as such. So he sees the symptoms and he's astonished. And he's such a young man. He's only just taken sannyas, 24 years old. Who's 24 in a no one? You're all old. Who's 24? I can't find anyone to compare. Can't find anyone to compare. 24 years old, sannyas. And 7 foot tall. And his goldanga and his cloth like the color of the reddish rising sun. And he's there lying on the temple in front of Lord Jagannath with the Ashta-shakti-kabha, ecstatic symptoms. And the Bhattacharya says they're extraordinary. The guards were ready to throw him out. So then the connection was made. And then Mahaprabhu, after 9 hours, in fact, already by that time, he had attracted such attention. We were hearing him the last time as he was arriving, as he was approaching the Jagannath temple, and that Ataranala, that's 18, the bridge with 18 arches. As you approach Jagannath Puri, still you go on that road, Ataranala. Although when we were there with Bhakti Purushotam Swami, Bhakti Purushotam, who was born in Jagannath Puri, Puri Bashi, he looked and he said, count how many arches there are. We counted, there's 19. But Ataranala, there's also 18, but they're 19. We went there last time. We went there to Danda Bangla Nodi. We went to that place. That's it. So from there, you can the first time you can see the chakra at that place. Even now you can see from Ataranala Bridge, you can see Jagannath, the chakra. What to speak of the after you all left then we went to Narendra Sarobar. There also you can see. Then we took bath and you went there, you all left. So Mahaprabhu arriving, he was falling down, he's chanting the slokas, glorifying Jagannath and falling down unconscious, and then getting up and chanting and falling. In this way, it took him 9 hours just to get to Jagannath temple. By then already so many people had gathered. Already, so many people were outside the temple. So crowds and crowds of the Puri Bashis, they'd heard about the effulgent, golden figured sannyasi with a beautiful form, Goshundur, from Mayapur, Bengal. And already, and there was such a crowd that Bhattacharya said he's unconscious. He remained unconscious for 9 hours after seeing Lord Jagannath. And the Bhattacharya said, take him to my house. And the guards, they couldn't, there's so many people. So they all wanted to touch. Like the ants, they transport a grain of rice, you see? Not like that. So they're all carrying him. That didn't even wake him up. You imagine being poked and pushed so many people. He was in such absorption. So then, and Mahaprabhu came to consciousness, and then he said, I've come here to learn from you. I've come here to learn, to take shelter of you. I've come here, the Bhattacharya. So I will, he's such a young man, such an attractive Goshundur, that everyone Cupid is mesmerized seeing his beauty. A young man, 24 years old, how can he possibly maintain the vows of renunciation? It's too difficult. Therefore, I will instruct him in the Vedanta. Vedanta Padyan, Shanashira Dharma, hearing the Vedanta and meditation are the duties of a sannyasi. I will instruct him in the Vedanta. And you see the picture, Mahaprabhu was sitting there 7 days. You're not saying anything. Well, no questions? No, it's all clear. Only question, the only thing I don't understand is your commentary. And then Mahaprabhu began to explain the Bhakti Siddhanta, Bhakti Vedanta, and the Atmarama verse, and the Bhattacharya was astonished. He was the most renowned academic scholar of Veda. He went to Mithila. He memorized the whole of the Nyaya commentaries and Shastra. He memorized those Mithila Brahmins. They were attached to their curriculum. They wanted exclusive rights to their Nyaya curriculum. So they had special searches. You couldn't take any notes out. They didn't want anyone else teaching. They wanted exclusive. Only we teach the Nyaya. You had to go there. They didn't want to set branches. He memorized everything and got through the security, and then came and was given shelter by the king. And then so what a scholar. And Mahaprabhu was defeating him. He couldn't believe, no one can defeat me. Adikande, Sri Gaurangir, Sharva Shastrajai, Shri Bhuvane Henonahi, Shaishan Mukohoi. Sharva Shastrajai. He conquered all the scriptures. Nimai Pandit. He knew the scriptures were on the tip of his tongue. Just Joto Bako, Gangadash Pandit Koren, Shukrit Shanile Matro, Thakur Thoren. Hearing once, he remembered everything his guru said. Shukrit Shanile Matro, Thakur Thoren. He remembered hearing once. All of the scriptures he mastered them were on his tongue. And no one, Tribhuvane Heno Nahi, Shaishan Mukohoi. Within the three worlds, no one could stand before him and discuss Shastra. And he defeated the Bhattacharya. He was astonished. And then he displayed the form, Radha Krishna. Jugalamurti, he displayed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So this is the first major preaching. Of course, Jagai Madai, deliverance and everything, but that was in Mahaprabhu was Grihastha. He wasn't officially. He took sannyas to preach. So having taken sannyas, this is the first major strategic victory in Mahaprabhu's mission of spreading Krishna consciousness. He converted the king of Puri's guru to be such a Vaishnava that he couldn't even mention the word mukti. Bhakti Padai Sadayavak. Mahaprabhu said, you're changing the word. It's mukti Padai. Said, no, I cannot say that word. I cannot speak, I cannot hear that word. He became such a devotee. So the news spread all over India. Even Prakasananda Sharashat will hear after, now we get, this is many years later. This is, well, here we are in Prayag, and then Mahaprabhu goes to Kashi. So this is at least 4 or 5 years later, after delivering Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He meets Prakasananda Sarvabhauma. He says, we've heard he's converted the great Acharya Bhattacharya. He's converted him, but this is just some magic. But the news of this spread all over India. It converted the guru of the king. It converted him to Vaishnavism. He was a Mayavadi. He was an impersonal Nyaya, Ramarian. It converted him. So what to speak of the Puri? What to speak of the influence that had in Jagannath Puri? We were discussing with Bhakti Purushottam Shami Maharaj the significance of Mahaprabhu basing himself in Jagannath Puri, where he was patronized by the king. In Bengal, actually, there was the government was the Mughals in Bengal, and there was incidents where they terrorized the Vaishnavas. The Nawab, he sent the soldiers, anyone doing Sankirtan on the streets, we will take all of you, we will forcibly make you mogul, sprinkle the water. He was sold out servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So much desiring and Mahaprabhu's mercy. So much Mahaprabhu was able to, in Jagannath Puri, he was able to fully enjoy the Sankirtan pastimes with his eternal associates in Jagannath Puri, such a special place. So then still the desire to go to Vrindavan was there. And Mahaprabhu attempted to go to Vrindavan. And he, Gaura hoite modui shamashrai janani janovi, edui doyamoy. I will go to Vrindavan via Bengal because Janani, my mother, and Janovi, Ma Ganga, edui doyamoy. These are very merciful. And Mahaprabhu was feeling separation. He said he wanted to take all the Bengali devotees with him to Vrindavan. And he went. As all described Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan was Thakur. As he journeyed to Jagannath Puri, and the crowds with more and more that they wherever Shachinandan, wherever he touched where he stepped, the devotees they would collect the dirt. The roads were destroyed. No more road. Just potholes where they collected all the dirt. It's still like that in Bengal. Such crowds were there. And then it attracted the Nawab, the ruler, the Sultan, the king, the Sultan, the supreme ruler of all Bengal. That was big. Bengal was bigger than now. It's East Bengal, West Bengal, and parts of Orissa, Bihar, all the way to Assam. So big Bengal, the kingdom of Bengal. Big. And the king, Nawab, he's there. And that's all described. We've shared that with you on several occasions. Anta Lila, Anta Kanda, Chaitanya Bhagavat, chapter 4. Mahaprabhu's Ram Kelly preaching. And then Sanatana Goswami, when we heard that we said a few weeks ago in the internet, we described that first meeting of Rupa and Sanatana and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at the end of that meeting, Sanatana Goswami, he advised, he suggested that this was going to Vrindavan with such a crowd was not appropriate. And nothing was said at the time, but Mahaprabhu carried on. He went to Kanai Natashala. We'll be visiting there in a month or so, devotees from Mathura Desh, Ram Kelly, Kanai Natashala to work. He got to Kanai Natashala and then he began to reflect on what Sanatana had said. Mahaprabhu explained that through the lips of Sanatana, Krishna has given me good advice. The people will criticize me. I'm going with a big show with the trumpets and a band, the elephants. This is no way to enter Vrindavan. I will go alone or with one person. So Mahaprabhu returned from Bengal again, along the bank of the Ganga, again Shantipur. Raghunath Das Goswami, young boy at that time, he came associated. Mahaprabhu went back to Jagannath Puri and then went through Jharkhand. And he enjoyed so much taking bath in the waterfalls or the rivers. In the morning, the Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he would make fire. Mahaprabhu would warm himself in the morning. And then he would cook grains. There were some people living in Jharkhand, some villages were there. So he would collect grains, rice for a few days, and he would collect whatever shak shobji that was available in the forest. Mahaprabhu would eat. Imagine that, those offerings. Imagine taking some of that prasad Mahaprabhu took in the forest of Jharkhand. Wild shak cooked by Balabhadra Bhattacharya. Mahaprabhu enjoyed so much. Gaura Priya Shaka Shebon Jivana Shartaka Muni. Just by honoring the shak, green leafy vegetables, which are dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you can perfect your life. Shaka Shebon. And then Mahaprabhu goes to Vrindavan. That in itself is another encyclopedic topic. Mahaprabhu in days, and then Balabhadra Bhatta, they said we have to take him out of Vrindavan. It's too intense. The Maha Bhakti is too intense. We have to take him out of Vrindavan. So they brought him out of Vrindavan. And then we were discussing in the last meeting, Mahaprabhu coming to Prayag, and so many people, the thousands, tens of thousands of people that are coming to see him and are rolling on the ground. They're laughing, they're crying. Mahaprabhu with his arms raised, chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol. And this extraordinary Aisharja Prakash, manifestation of the Lord's opulence, is the scene that Srila Prabhupada opens the teachings of Lord Chaitanya with. He describes the scene. It's very significant. Mahaprabhu's, the glory of his spreading Krishna consciousness unrestrictedly through chanting the holy name at Prayag. Mahaprabhupada introduces Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the Western world, describing this incident in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And then I believe we last time we discussed about what was his name? Balabhacharya. We discussed about that. And first he comes, and Rupa and Sanatana are showing such humility, and they're quoting all verses from the Bhagavatam. Aho bhatta shvapacho togariyam jivagrebhati nama tubhyam te pustapaste juhupu shashnavaya brahmana chunama grinanti yate. How can they be considered rejects when they're constantly, from their lips, we're hearing constantly the chanting of the holy name? The Balabhacharya, he's quoting so many verses from the Bhagavatam, glorifying the chanting of the holy name. And the Vaishnava, Chatur, Name Bhakta Chatur Vedi, Mad Bhakta Sapa Chapriya. The learned scholar of the four Vedas, if he's not my devotee, Name Bhakta Chatur Vedi, Mad Bhakta Sapa Chapriya, he's not as dear to me as my devotee, even born in the family of dog eaters. This verse is quoted by Mahaprabhu at that time, Rupa and Anupam. And then they went and he's trying to contain himself, he's trying to constrain himself in the presence of Balabhacharya. Mahaprabhu was trying to constrain himself, but he couldn't. We take the beats, we sit, I've got to finish the round. So we're chanting japa, we're just thinking I'm about a quarter of the way through, almost half. Ooh. Yes, the beats getting smaller and smaller, probably 3/4 of the way, maybe only 10 beats left. I think 10, 5. Oh, that's getting close now. I can feel it. Let me check. Yeah, it's coming. 4, 3. Finish the round. And we chant 16 rounds. So you begin 1 round to 4 rounds, and then you get 8 rounds, and then you get to 10 rounds. And then instead of thinking 9 rounds, 10 rounds, you start thinking 6 left, 5 left, 4 left. Is it not? Yeah. I've done 9 rounds, 8 rounds, 9 rounds, 10 rounds, 5 rounds left, 4 rounds left, finished. Mahaprabhu, he's trying to be normal. He's trying to be like a normal person. Just seeing the color of the Jamuna, he's a love of God. It is so is inflamed. Babu guys, he's rocking the boat, and it continues. He's rocking the boat. Somehow they got to the other side. So then they came back. They did that nice Lila there. They served. He cooked. His family members, they cooked for Mahaprabhu and bathed his feet, gave him fresh cloth. It was wet. He'd been in the Jamuna. Bathed his feet, sprinkled that water over the family members. They offered him prasadam. Mahaprabhu honored. They offered the remnants to Rupa and Anupam. And then he brought him back. And now, so then now we're seeing that the beginning of the Rupshika, actually, beginning of the instructions. But we won't actually begin today. Almost, but no, we won't begin. So they go to a quiet place because there's so many people there in Prayag, a quiet place. Dashashvamedha Ghat. There's Dashashvamedha Ghat in Prayag, and there's Dashashvamedha Ghat in Kashi also. That's both places. Varanasi, Dashashvamedha Ghat. So Kaviraj Goswami explains the topics. Krishna Tattva. This is text number 115 of the 19th chapter, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhva Lila. Krishna Tattva, Bhakti Tattva, Rasha Tattva, Pranto, Shob Shikhailu Prabhu, Bhagavat Shidanto. The topics of the Rupshika. Kaviraj Goswami summarizes Krishna Tattva. The science of Krishna, Prabhupada translates the truth of Krishna. Krishna Tattva, Bhakti Tattva. Bhakti Tattva means the process. Bhakti Tattva. And we'll hear all about the cultivating the beach by hearing and chanting Shravan Kirtan Jal, called as Bhakti Tattva, Shravan Bhakti. And Mahaprabhu talks about Shravan Bhakti and how to practice Shravan Bhakti and the results of Shravan. Shravan Bhakti, hoite ho roti udoy. That's Bhakti Tattva. You practice the sadhana bhakti. Roti udoy is awakens love. Roti awakens love. Mahaprabhu explains the sadhana bhakti. Krishna Tattva, he explains the nature of Krishna. Krishna Tattva also more so in the Sanatana Shikha, then there's a Krishna Tattva in full. The different avatars, the Manvantar avatars, the 6 types of avatars, all the different Narayan, the different forms of the Lord Krishna Tattva explained in full in the Sanatana Shikha. So this verse, it's kind of like for both Rupa and Sanatana Shikha, because topics that are not described in the Rupa Shikha as much, they're described more in the Sanatana Shikha, which comes in the next chapter. Rupa and Sanatana. Krishna Tattva, Bhakti Tattva, Rasa Tattva, specifically the Rasa Tattva, means the mellows of loving Krishna. Rasa Tattva. And the different ras, the Madhuja, the Vatsalya, Shakya, Shantaras are described. This is unique, the Gaudiya Siddhanto. And then he says, Shab Shikalo Prabhu Bhagavat Siddhanto. The Bhagavat Siddhanto, Shab Shikalo, Mahaprabhu teaches to Rupa Goswami. So this is very important, because what is there in Srimad Bhagavatam, 12 cantos, you see the books in this. 12 cantos, Srimad Bhagavatam. It is a encyclopedic, Puranic, Bhagavat Puranas, voluminous, 12 cantos. Shab Shikailo Prabhu Bhagavat Siddhanto. The conclusion of that 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu teaches to Rupa Goswami in one chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So is that not important for us to study this chapter deeply? Yes. So we can go slowly. Huh? Of course, alternatively, you can go for the 12 cantos of Bhagavatam, or you can just go for the one chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu to Rupa. So very, 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 very fascinating. So we'll go through these. Bhagavat Siddhanta teaches everything. Prabhupada makes comments on this purport that on this verse, he comments that it's interesting that Rupa Goswami, he was grihastha. Well, although it doesn't appear that he had wife and children, because we never hear that Rupa and Sanatan had children. Never hear that. But they weren't renunciates. They were family. They had extended family. The brothers were there. Anupam was married. His son was who? Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami, yes. And they were there, and Jiva Goswami was born there in Ramkeli. So they were there, their family, and they were in the government, prime minister and the finance minister, private secretary, the Nawab. So Prabhupada's making the point that a person that from the, you could say, entangled, the materialistic, he was involved in material life, had a job, had family, and was maintaining that person he selects to teach the conclusion of the whole of the Bhagavatam. So that's Mahaprabhu's. Of course, he's become renounced now, but he's just become renounced. He's just given up, and he's just come there from Ramkeli, from Bengal. He's just left, and he's just arrived. We were hearing in the last session, he just arrived. So it's only a few months before that he was completely absorbed in his job. At his job, that's why he was employed, had a job, and after 2 months, Mahaprabhu is selecting him to be the repository of the essence of all his teachings. That's significant. So now, although we're just about to begin the actual teachings that Mahaprabhu gives, and now Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he takes a little he goes into the future and he begins to describe some things about the Goswamis in Vrindavan, although they haven't even gone to Vrindavan yet. I've been inquiring from different Vaishnavas, senior learned scholars of the Gaudiya Shastras, that it appears to me, but I haven't got a clear answer, but it appears to me that, well, we looked at that meeting in Ramkelly. Mahaprabhu, at that time, he didn't say Vrindavan, but he said that Krishna will quickly deliver you. Krishna will quickly deliver you. And he gave an analogy. He said, you should act like what? Can anyone remember? Yeah. The wife is interested in another fellow, but she becomes more attentive to the household affairs so that she won't be suspected. So he said, act like that. And Krishna will very quickly do, Aj hoite tomanam rupshanaton, damna chara tomar, damna fete mormon. He initiated them, Rupa and Sanatana. But there was no mention there that you will go to Vrindavan and you will remain in Vrindavan. But Rupa and Sanatana, they knew that Mahaprabhu, he was there on his way to Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu said, I will go to Vrindavan via Bengal. But then he said to Rupa and Sanatana, he said, actually, everyone is inquiring why I have come here. I've come here just to deliver you too. Then Mahaprabhu returned. So Rupa and Sanatana, they knew about Vrindavan. They knew that Mahaprabhu was going to Vrindavan. So they may have assumed that he would go to Vrindavan and stay there. Go to Vrindavan and stay there. And that they would go, so Rupa Goswami, he sent the Brahmins to Puri to get news when he actually goes to Vrindavan. And then the Brahmins, they came back and said, he's already left. He's gone through the Jharkhand forest, he's already left. So immediately Rupa Goswami, he wound up everything and he left with his brother Anupam. So Rupa Goswami was going to Vrindavan. Rupa Goswami was going to Vrindavan to meet Mahaprabhu, who he assumed was remaining in Vrindavan. And then he finds that Mahaprabhu has left Vrindavan and is coming back. And so the meeting at Prayag ensued. So subsequently, after this meeting, Rupa Goswami goes to Vrindavan, and after meeting in a Sanatan Shikha, Sanatan Goswami, that's 4 chapters. That'll probably take us years. So the Sanatan Shikha, at the end of that, Sanatan Goswami says, I want to travel with you. I want to accompany you. And Mahaprabhu says, no, Vrindavan is your place. And your Rupa Goswami is already there. So they go to Vrindavan. So they become known as the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. H.I. Goshai Jabi Braja Koilavash, Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Parila Prakash, H.I. Goshai Jabi Braja Koilavash. They're the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. So that they're known for all of the temples, all of the temples in Vrindavan. They're the Goswami temples. The main temples of Vrindavan are the Goswami temples. Radha Madanohan, Gokulananda, Radha Govinda, Radha Gopinath. The main temples are the Goswami temples, 6 Goswami temples. Radha Shamsundura. And you'll hear Mahaprabhu in Vrindavan at that time, there was nothing. There was pond. Radha Kund, no one knew. Mahaprabhu identified Radha Kund. That's another question that came to mind recently. Someone we can research. It's worship of Giriraj. Radha Kund, Prabhupada describes in the Upadeshamrita, is the property of the Gaudiyas. Although everybody comes to Radha Kund in Vrindavan, but actually Radharani, she's the property of the Gaudiyas. Sri Radhika, the other Vaishnava Sampradayas, Sri Sampradaya, Madhva Sampradaya, they're not worshipping Radha Krishna, they're worshipping Lokhi Narayan. And those of you from Dokhin Bharat, South India, the big Narayan temples, the Chatubhuj Narayan, Vaishnava temples. And Loki Devi, she's not even there with Lord Narayan. She's in another temple. Tirupati, Balaji, and Loki Devi, she's downtown in another temple. This is in the Sri Sampradaya. Lord Narayan is worshipped. And sometimes Shayan Vishnu, Rameshwaram, Shayan Vishnu, there he's with Brahmaji, Shiv, Loki Devi there, that's lying down. There's Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Mahavishnu worshipped, Shayan. So these are the main temples of the Vaishnava Sampradayas. When you think of Vaishnava, you're thinking of the South Indian temples, the Vaishnava temples, Lord Vishnu. So Radharani, she's the Gaudiya, she's the property of the Gaudiya. Mahaprabhu is revealed Sri Radhika's Mohima. There's a song by Basu Ghosh that says, Jodi Gauda na hoite Radha Mahima. We would never know. Radha, Sri Radhika. Mahaprabhu revealed Radha Kund. But in Vrindavan now, everybody goes Radha Kund. But actually, it's the Gaudiyas. Mahaprabhu revealed Radha Kund. And Vrindavan. Through the Goswamis. Now everybody Vrindavan, Krishna's, but actually Mahaprabhu revealed Vrindavan. So now Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he projects further to when the Goswamis are actually residing in Vrindavan. And even though the instructions to Rupa Goswami haven't even begun yet, Kaviraj Goswami, he projects that what it's like, what they will be like when they are in Vrindavan. And so he begins to describe. This is text 125 of Manta Lila, chapter 19. Keho Jodi Deshe Jai Deki Vrindavan. So from Bengal. Kehu Jodi Deshe Jai Deki Vrindavan. They go from Bengal to see Vrindavan. Deshe Jai. It's Deki Vrindavan, having seen Vrindavan. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas, having gone to Vrindavan, Kehu Jodi Deshe Jai Deki Vrindavan. They've seen Vrindavan and they've returned to Bengal. Tare Prashna Koren Prabhu Porishadgan. Prabhu Porishadgan, his associates, his servants, the devotees of Prabhu, Mahaprabhu. Tade Prashna Koren, they inquired from them, those who had gone to Vrindavan. They inquired from them that how are Rupa and Sanatan in Vrindavan? What are their activities in the renounced order? What do they eat? What do they do? How are they engaged 24 hours a day in serving the Lord? Anyone who came back from Vrindavan to go to Desh, the Mahaprabhu Parshad Gaon, Mahaprabhu's the eternal associates, his devotees, they would inquire. And then Kaviraj Goswami, he's describing what they would say, those Gaudiya Bhakta Gaon, when they returned from Vrindavan, what they would say, how they would describe the activities of Rupa and Sanatan, what they ate, how they engaged in devotional service. So he's describing Aniket Duha Bone Jokta Brikagon, Ekek Brike Tole, Ekek Ratre Shayon. That Aniket Duha, these two, Duha, Aniket is without Niket is the residence. Aniket, they have no residence. They have no room, they have no base. Even our most renounced mendicants in our movement, at least they get a room. They get a room. They get a room. It's not that they're without a room, they get a room. And some of them, some of our renounced, it's also acceptable, they have a base, they have a permanent room with their library and with their things, and they travel from that place. Many of our sannyasis have a permanent base. As for preaching, the Goswamis, Aniket, no base, no room. Aniket Duha. Bone Joto Brikagon. In the forest, how many trees there are? Bone Joto Brikagon. Ekek Brike Tole. The Brike Tole means under the tree, at the base of the tree, the roots of the tree. Ekek Brike Tole, Ekek Ratre Shayon. They would lie down for one night. I think when I speak the Bengali verse, you can almost understand directly. Yes. Yeah. Ekek Brike Tole, Ekek Ratre Shayon. But it is so sweet when it's spoken by Kaviraj Goswami in the Bangla, is it not? It's so sweet. And Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he predicted that the foreigners would learn Bengali to read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So at least we are we can perhaps we can be blessed by the great acharyas if we at least one foreigner, many foreigners, but at least we're reading Bengali. And someone has to fulfill his prediction. And just by fulfilling his prediction, you'll be included in the party. Is it not? Right? He said, Siddhanta Saraswati said, I'll go there and I'll say, look, Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, tell him a foreigner who learned Bengali is waiting outside the Goloka to get in. Tell him. Okay, bring him. Let's hear him. Yeah, read Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I'm taking the opportunity. I hope you don't mind. I'm taking the opportunity to read Chaitanya Charitamrita in Bengali. Aniket duha bane jokta brika gon ekek brika tale ekek ratre shayon. Because the way that Kaviraj Goswami has written it, it is full of devotion. It is full of it is poetry. He's Kaviraj. He's the king of poets. It is full of devotion. And when you hear the way he's describing it, he's describing with such love. And when we hear the verses, we can feel the way he loves Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These brothers have no fixed residence. They reside beneath trees, Prabhupada translates. One night under one tree and the next night under another. That's extreme renunciation. That means you have nothing. You have nothing. We see the pictures there. They're quivering. They're just with their cloth, one piece of cloth. That's it. That's it. They're nothing. No key, no room, no storage facility, nothing. No credit card, no ATM card, no Aadhaar card. No mobile. Can you believe? No more. They force you to have mobile. Now I used to pay the electricity bill they have to do it on the mobile, and you have to put your mobile number in. It's all government surveillance. They're keeping your eye on you via your mobile. Soon the day will come when we go to get the bus, we go to get the train, go to get the flight, and you just look into the thing and they scan your iris. That's it. And it would all come up, all of your bank accounts, all of your file, all of your visited websites, everything. They'll see. That's it. You'll just be an eyeball. It's scanned, and they know everything about you. Is it not? It will happen. And we're heading towards that. That's why we have to make our properties so with the big walls out there in our farm, and then just they have to get ready for the time when the time comes. So they're under one tree each night, under one tree. And what did they eat? They asked them, what did they eat? Vipra grihe, shtulabika, kahan, madhukari, shukaruti channa, shibai bhoga parihari. They would beg from the houses of Brahmins. They would beg a little dry chapati and channa. That's chickpea, dry. Not like we have that chickpea sabji with tomato sauce and the same. Dry chickpea and chapati. Shivaya, they would chew. They would chew. They would eat. Chew. That was all dry chickpea and chapati. You have to chew that a lot to be able to swallow it. Bhog parihari. They gave up all enjoyment. They gave up all enjoyment. Our renunciates in our movement, our great preachers, that they sometimes they travel with their own cook. That's okay because a special diet and everything, but it's regular. It's not that we're giving up all enjoyment, but the Goswamis said not even a soft bed, not even a soft bed to get enough rest. They lie down under the tree, and then okay, at least we'll get some nice hot. And sometimes it's tough, marathon time, and we're pushed, and so many people. But when prasadam comes, I traveled for several years in East Bengal with Krishna Nitya Lila Pravishta Shri Krishna Kirtan Das Brahmachari. And then I didn't know Bengali. Then I didn't know any Bengali. I was learning Bengali. It was tough. It was tough. You're the only one in the whole group, and none of them know English. None of the brahmacharis know English. Only Krishna Kirtan Prabhu knew English. So I was completely sheltered under his lotus feet. And he would say to me, Prabhu, there's no regulation in this program. When I say eat, you eat. When I say sleep, you sleep. When I say get up, you get up. When I say go, you go. That's it. It was austere for me. It was because I'd come from a situation. I was in Australia. We were doing Sankirtan, book distribution. We had so much facility. We had our own vehicle. In fact, every year we got a new vehicle, because the temple accountant found that it's better to buy a new vehicle and sell it after 12 months than to pay money to have the vehicle serviced. So we would buy new fleet of cars, and after 12 months sell them and buy new ones. And that was better financial management than keeping the cars and servicing them. So we were brahmacharis in the temple. Every year we're driving new cars. New cars, brand new Holdens. You put your foot. I remember you would be on the highway. You'd go to pass. You'd accelerate, and your head would slam back on like a rocket taking off. So much power. And we could travel wherever we want. We had our own program. We had our team, our cooks. We go where we want, do what we want. Complete control. Because we were distributing books and collecting, we had complete facility. As long as the funds were coming in, they didn't care what we did. We were the kings. We were the kings of the place. We cruise one temple to another, cruise distributing books in this city, tear through the city, leave the people lying on the street. What happened? Race off to the next town. We used to have our cook. He'd be in the back. He would cook we'd drive from one town to the next. The cook would be in the back cooking while we were driving, to be able to get the evening crowd. So we had so much, and then I came to the situation where every day is like a completely no control. What we eat, what we sleep, that in itself was was difficult. Gradually, we learned Bengali language, and we got a little more control. So it was some days were long journeys. You drive 8 hours night on these. The roads in Bangladesh were better than the roads in West Bengal, but long journeys. You'd arrive at the place. It'd take a long time. Program in the evening, big pandal program, 10, 15,000 people all waiting. And we would be late. We'd arrive at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And then it's dark, and you're in some remote village, no electricity, one little 20-watt globe, and 20 brahmacharis there outside the latrine, banging on the door. And you come out. I had a nice what they call suchi kit. It's the bath bag, your toiletries, a special one I got from Kuala Lumpur. It had a hook, and you had it, and there was the toothbrush there, like commando style. But you take bath at the tube. Well, there's not even a hook to hang the thing on. Not even a hook to hang the thing on. It's there in the rocks and the tube out. The mosquitoes. And then there's 20 people standing there watching the foreign guy wearing a gamcha taking a bath in the bucket, looking. And eventually you get freshed up, you take bath, and then you go to the stage, and there's people there, and by this time it's 10 o'clock at night, you're exhausted, and then the kirtan starts, and they say, Prabhu, dance. Dance. As the stage is bumping up and down, days would be the days. And then under those Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, he would kind of like be a little away from me, a little away. He wouldn't communicate. And then we'd be in one place, and then there would be feast. We'd stay in one place for 2 or 3 days, and then so all the local people they want to host us, big feast, and 20, 30 ladies, they would come, and they would be chopping vegetables, everything cooked on the fire, the wood fire, and the gobur wood fire. big feast. Oh, so many items. Parch, tokari, or Bengali items. Hot, sabjis, chutney, puri, everything, rice, and then mishti anna, rasgulla, chutney, so many items. Big feast to be there. And they'd want you to eat so much, naturally. Titi parayam. So we'd take a big feast and we'd have this hand. And then Krishna Kirtan would come up to me and say, Prabhu, so how is everything? He's very intelligent. He would come after the feast and he said, how is everything? I said, fine, everything's good. So prasadam, when it gets tough sometimes, but we always know only half an hour and it'll be prasadam. Is it not? Prasadam is always the saving grace. So, there were big festivals, people with noise at night, you can't sleep. We would sleep, the big pandal in the jungle, and we'd have our generator to make the patch. And then you'd be sleeping like 20 minutes from the generator. It goes all night. For prasadam, you just make it to prasadam. Prasadam in the morning, prasadam. So the Goswamis, they're not even that. Not even that. No bed, nothing. Sleeping on the ground under the trees of Vrindavan. And not even they had nice prasadam. Dried chapatis and chickpeas. Koraya matra hate, chida bahirvas. In their hand, they're carrying the water pot. Hate, kanta, chida bahirvas. A torn cloth. You'll hear Sanatan Goswami, he exchanged his valuable kombol shawl for the kata, different old pieces of cloths sewn together. Krishna kata, Krishna nam, nartan ullash. Even in such circumstances, the Goswamis, nartana ullash, they're dancing with great jubilation. Even such austere circumstances, and they're so much natural love for Krishna consciousness. They're dancing with such joy. Ashta Praraha Krishna Bhajan. Charidanda Shayon. Charidanda. The danda is 24 minutes. So Charidanda means 4 times 24. That's how many? That's 100. 4 times 24. So that's an hour and a half. They would shayon. They would lie down out of 24 hours. They would lie down for an hour and a half. It says Ashta Paraha, Krishna Bhajan. 22 and a half hours, Krishna Bhajan. 1.5 hours lying down. Nam Shankirtan. And Sheha. And some days they didn't even take the 1.5 hours rest. Some days they didn't even lie down for the 1.5 hours. And so in this way, they're completely, as the Srinivasacharya sings, Nidra aha viharika jivijito cha adanta dino. Nidra, sleep, aha, eating, vihar akadi, recreation, etc. Vijito. They lost interest in eating and sleeping and any type of relaxation and enjoyment. Time off. No interest. Vijito. And at the same time, cha adanta dino, they were extremely humble, thinking themselves fallen. Nicha jati, nicha shange, potit odham, kubishai kupe, goinonu jonom. I've wasted my life, Sanat Goswami. I've wasted my life in the deep bishai, the well of sense enjoyment. Nicha jati, my birth is degraded. Nicha shange, my association is degraded. Potit, I'm sinful. Odham, the lowest of men. But they're actually convinced that that's their position, even though they're so exalted in advanced in Krishna consciousness and in renunciation. And in this way, they absorb their lives, they absorb their time. Sometimes writing the Bhakti Rash Shastra, the devotional books of the Goswamis, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Ujjvala Nilamoni, the Upadesh Amrit, Govinda Lilamrit, the Bhakti Shastra, Gaura Likon, they're writing. Chaitanya Kota Shune Kobe Chaitanya Chinton. Sometimes they're discussing about Lord Chaitanya. This is their bhajan. Chaitanya Kota Shune Chaitanya Chinton. Sometimes just thinking about the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in this way, they engage themselves 24 hours a day. So next time we meet, we'll carry on with the actual teachings. Will begin next time. It'll probably be online from Mayapur when we broadcast. And Mahaprabhu begins his instructions, text 136. Any questions?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, the Shadow Swami has to come this verse come. The Swami said that divinity is from the devouring mouth of liberation. So when we preach, we say everyone, the purpose of human form like come up cycle of birth and death. Then there are 5 kinds of muktis, liberation. In what chance that is given?
So the question is, Kaivalya Nishtarako, that when we preach, we tell people that you'll get rid of the birth and death. Yeah, well, that's okay, because preaching means Mahaprabhu has ordered us that Jari Dekha Tari Koha Krishna Upadesh, Krishna's teachings. And Prabhupada translates Krishna Upadesh as Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So in Bhagavad Gita, this is how Krishna's preaching in Bhagavad Gita. He says that, Chakradeha Punajanmanayati, Mameti, Shoarjuna, he's encouraging us to get out of the entanglement of repeated birth and death. Anityam ashukam lokam imam prapya bhajashvamam. You've come to this anitta ashukam lokam, you've come to this temporary, miserable place. Anitam ashukam lokam imam prapya bhajashvamam. Having come here and you're suffering, just worship me. So they're suffering because of being entangled in this material world. We have to. So the Goswamis, their writings are advanced. Now you've come to the path of deliverance. Now understand that Govinda Kotha, the Krishna Bhajan, how to do Krishna Bhajan, the Goswamis are teaching us. But delivering people in illusion, where we preach to them from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains, Mat chitta sarvadurgani, mat prasada tarishisi. Mat chitta, become conscious of me, sarvadurgani, mat prasada tarishisi. You will cross over sarvadurgani, all of the difficulty, mat prasada, by my mercy, tarishisi. You will overcome much chitta by becoming conscious of me. So in a way, you could say that's Jnana Mishra, because it's inspiring you to get free of your misery, which is the Jnana, to get free of misery. So we preach from Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita that is Krishna's teaching. You are suffering in this material world. Don't be a fool and suffer anymore. You become my devotee and you worship me. And so that is how we preach to people. The Goswami's teachings, they're advanced. Having come to Krishna consciousness, now we learn how to worship Krishna. We become a Goswami Anugami, we become a Rupa Nuga. And we learn how to worship Krishna by following the Goswamis and their example and their teachings. But for preaching, we preach from the Bhagavad Gita.
Devouring mouth of liberation, something like that in the translation. Devouring mouth of liberation.
Yeah.
So, is that mean that devotees, they don't desire for liberation? They just want service. They want to birth after birth. They want to serve.
Well, that's the highest platform. But chant and be happy. We're allowed to be happy. We're miserable now. We're allowed to be happy. Prabhupada would say, chant and be happy. There's the card where you distribute, chant and be happy. So we can desire to be free from misery. That's healthy. And then that will inspire us to practice Krishna consciousness, because even though Krishna consciousness can be a little tough, material life is tougher. Now, for many of us, that's the only thing that keeps us going. We don't have a taste in Krishna consciousness, but we know it's worse in the material world. Okay, I'll stay. So you don't have to desire, you don't have to be on the level where you don't desire anything except pleasing Krishna and serving Krishna. Our self-interest is what keeps us in devotional life. Eventually, you become more and more absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Even that no longer becomes a motivation. You're just attached to Krishna and serving Krishna. But in the beginning, we're serving Krishna because we remember what suffering in the material world is like, and that pain actually convinces us to serve Krishna. Jnanavan mam prapadyante. You have to have that jnana. The material world is suffering. So that's okay. You stay on that platform and you remind yourself of the miseries of the material world. You take shelter of Krishna and he will protect you. He will deliver you from the suffering in the material world. He promises to do that. And that can be our motivation. And you carry on with that motivation. And eventually that motivation will no longer be so motivating because you don't think about it, but you're just attached to serving Krishna and worshiping Krishna and hearing about Krishna, glorifying Krishna. You're attached to the activities of Bhagavad Bhakti. And that way, gradually, the taste for pure devotional service awakens. Shall we chant Hare Krishna? Yes.
Thank you very much for giving your time. This was a short visit and we could only have one session. But really appreciate you removing your time. So for everyone's knowledge, Prabhuji has been teaching in the last 3 days. He has taught 10 sessions of Bhakti Shastri, and he has also given a Bhagavatam class. That's humanly impossible to do. And on top of that, yesterday evening he was so kind enough to give us time after the Kirtan. And today he is giving time. Now at 2 o'clock he has another class, and then he has a flight to catch at 4. So this is his schedule, and then he's going to be teaching for the next 1 week in Bangalore. So he, in spite of that, he removes time. Actually, the topics that you speak, probably it should just be serious group around you. Would you tolerate all of us householders with our kids and all the noise that they make? That's your movie. Like you were saying that in Vaikuntha you will be there. So similarly, we'll say that we heard from him. We heard from our qualification. And as you mentioned, Kaviraj Goswami is so attached to Mahaprabhu that he's speaking in this way. Similarly, your attachment to Gaura Lila comes out through the way you are, but also the way you built up. And your attachment is the reason why we're not able to get to the 19th chapter yet. And you just went on with building it up. So we are so fortunate to have you as our Shiksha and to hear from you. And we request you to keep us fallen souls in your mind and regularly visit you whenever possible. So Prabhuji is going to visit again in July. And so we pray that we can get more association of Prabhuji. So let us thank Prabhuji by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.